Hey everyone, my name is Iris and I run the blog lifeofiris.com where we talk about cruises, crew life, and travel. Today we are going to do a deep dive into Holland America Line's 2026 Grand World Voyage. Okay, for the 2026 Holland America Line World Cruise, it will be on board the Volendam. It's going to be from January 4th until May 17th of 2026. It is 133 days. The itinerary has done a pretty big shift. It had the same beginning down around South America, Antarctica, but after it made its Pacific crossing and was in Asia, it was going to continue across the Indian Ocean and make its way through the Suez and go up into Europe for a little bit. Now, they have decided to get rid of that because of the war in Gaza, and instead, when they're in Asia, they're actually just going to continue north. And there's a whole big Japan segment now that's going to be part of it. And it has some Alaska and then finishes with kind of traditional for a Panama Canal cruise those last few weeks on board. So we'll do a full itinerary review. This is not a full circumnavigation. There are 15 world cruises sailing in 2026. There are a number of them that are full circumnavigations. I do have a blog post on all of the world cruises that are sailing. So there's a link in my description of the video for this. If you're interested in a full circumnavigation, maybe that's the direction to head. There are definitely some good ones. Okay, for the 2026 Holland America Line World Cruise, the starting price is going to be around $30,000. I say around because as of today, the price is in the 29,000s, but a couple days ago it was about 31,000. So I don't know if that's an active promotion that's going on that had that reduction, if they're trying to fill a certain number of cabins, and then once that hits, then it's going to go up. But you're looking at about $30,000 per person for an inside cabin, an ocean view cabin. There's those on decks 1 and 2. There are some porthole cabins, but decks 1 and 2 is going to be the unobstructed view. Deck 3, which is the promenade deck, that's the walking deck where the lanai cabins also are. There are quite a few that are listed as obstructed that still have really good views out across. So you're just going to have people walking by, and you have those tinted windows. Now they're tinted so people can't see in. I will say at night, if you have your light on and people are walking by, you want to have your curtains closed because they can't like directly see in, but they can kind of get a gist as to what's going on. So something to be mindful of for the lanai cabins and the ocean view cabins on deck 3. There are some that are very obstructed views that are there as well. So just something to keep in mind. Then there's the lanai cabins. So that's where you're going to see a big price jump. That's $47,954 right now. There are a limited supply of those. So if you want to have that direct access outside, but don't want to do the price jump to the Vista Suite, because Volendam does not have any just traditional balcony cabins. The lowest level balcony cabin they have is the Vista Suite. That's going to be $55,954. That's on decks 6 and 7. Now on deck 7, where the Vista Suites are, is pretty much all underneath the overhang from the Lido. So the Lido Marketplace, it kind of goes out a little bit extra. It does have a little bit of an overhang, and that's where the Vista Suites are on deck 7. You're not going to have as much direct sunshine that's coming through. Now, some places in the world, having that overhang is actually not a bad thing. If you're somewhere that's really, really rainy, having that overhang means that you can still be like out, arms on the balcony, kind of enjoying it without getting wet. Whereas if you were somewhere where it just goes straight down the side of the ship, you're going to get wet. Something to think about. Another thing to think about is with the Vista Suites, deck 6. So that's where the bulk of the Vista Suites are. It literally runs the full deck front to back, but there are music venues at the very front of the ship on deck 5. So the theater runs deck 4 and 5, and then you'll also have things like the Ocean Bar, which has a band that plays every night, as well as the Mix Bar that are going to be happening kind of midship to all the way forward. You're going to have those music venues. So just a few things to think about as you're picking out your cabins. The Vista Suites do start at $56,000. Neptune Suites, those are deck 7, the kind of front half to a little more than half, are Neptune Suites. So those are pretty much twice the size of the Vista Suite. They are divine. They're fabulous. They also come with the Neptune Lounge, which has the Neptune Lounge concierge. The Neptune Lounge got a big makeover in the last dry dock. It is looking beautiful. There's always snacks and treats and little sandwiches and things that are there. There's also a dedicated person from the front office, the Neptune Lounge concierge, that can help you with things. So you don't have to go to the front office to deal with the various things that come up throughout the cruise. You'll also, with the Neptune suite, be able to have like Pinnacle breakfast, which is lovely. You'll get priority tendering. With tendering, one of the perks of the Holland America Line Mariner Society, when you're 4 or 5-star mariners, is you can kind of cut the line. You get priority tendering. But when you're on a Grand Voyage, especially the World Cruise, like everybody's a 4 and 5-star mariner. Not everybody, but it is the bulk. It's not going to feel like as big of a perk as it would if you're on a 1-week Caribbean cruise, because there's just so many people that have that perk through their loyalty to the cruise line. Okay, so what do you get for all of that money that you're spending? Before we get into the extras that you're going to get, I do want to say Holland America Line has a lot of different ways to get onboard credit. That is through the shareholder benefit. They have credit for if you're a teacher, an educator, work at a college or university, if you have been in the military, if you have been an EMT, a firefighter, anything in that category. They also have AARP benefits, and you don't actually have to be a retired person to get AARP. You can just sign up if you're over, I think it's 18. So there's a lot of different ways to get onboard credit. I will put a link to my blog post outlining 9 different ways to get onboard credit. So you want to check that out before you book, because you want to make sure that you're getting as many benefits as you can. You are on for 133 days. Lots of opportunities to spend money. So if you have a little extra on your onboard account, it'll help make the cruise that much more grand. As a very base level, you have the main dining room. The main dining room is on decks 4 and 5 aft. Deck 5 is going to be your assigned seating. So if you are someone that likes a set time for dinner, that's still an option. And then if you want anytime dining, so you can just show up and they will seat you, that's going to be on deck 4. The Lido Buffet, so the Lido restaurant, is on deck 8 aft. That's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The dining room's open for breakfast and dinner every day, and lunch and afternoon tea on sea days. Then you also have the dive-in, which is the burger bar. That is on deck 8 at the front of midship. For those of you that have sailed on Volendam before but haven't sailed on it since the dry dock that finished in November, the taco bar that was there is no longer there. It's now incorporated into what was the pasta station, so the middle station on the port side of the buffet area. So you can still get all of the things that were on the taco bar, but it's now a served to you situation instead of being available next to where the dive-in is. So those are kind of your included dining venues. The other thing is room service. So included with Holland America Line, it does not cost extra, is room service. So that's a breakfast menu. There's an all-day menu, 24-hour. There's a one that's available through, say, until 11 p.m. And then the big secret that everyone needs to know, it should not be a secret, shout it from the rooftops, is that at dinner time you can order off the dining room menu and get it delivered to your cabin. It's delightful. It doesn't cost extra. Oh, it's so good. There are some extras that you can get through room service. So if someone's watching this and they're like, well, I ordered lobster from the Pinnacle and they charged me. Yes, there are some things that you can pay for that are on room service. If you want dive-in delivered to your cabin, you can do that. That does cost money. If you want Pinnacle delivered to your cabin, you can do that. It does cost money. But you can get so many good things from room service without it costing anything. So those are the basics of the food that's included. Drinks that are included. You've got your basic water, lemonade, iced tea, coffee, regular tea. They actually have a pretty good selection of regular tea. Milk in the morning at breakfast time, they do have a pretty wide selection of types of milk. So they've got the oat milk, the soy milk, the almond milk, the lactose-free milk, all of the different milks that exist. I don't know how many there are now. There's also some juices that are there in the mornings. So there's a decent selection of, kind of your basic things that are available to drink. If you want any sodas, wine, alcoholic, anything, those things all cost more. Okay, so on the Grand World Voyage, there are some extra things that are included as well. So you're going to have some additional theme nights and parties, whereas on a kind of typical 1-2 week Holland America cruise, you're going to have the orange night. That's kind of your orange party, that's going to be the party night. On the Grand World Voyage, you're going to have a grand ball, you're going to have a masquerade, you're going to have a casino night, you're going to have a bunch of different theme nights that are happening over the course of the cruise. Now, they'll let you know ahead of time what the themes are going to be so you can pack accordingly. And then you'll also have different supplemental staff that come on board. There's always Project Linus going on, which is a group of people. They actually bring a whole bunch of knitting supplies on board. And then over the course of the cruise, people make blankets to donate to babies that are in hospital and whatnot. There's also, I've seen watercolor artists on board, additional arts and crafts classes in addition to what is normally included with Holland America. So there's a lot of extra those kind of things. You'll have cultural ambassadors come on, you'll have guest presentations, you'll have a lot more presentations in the world stage. There's a lot of those kind of extras that happen. You'll also get different pillow gifts over the course of the cruise. There's almost always a commemorative plate that goes with each Grand Voyage. This particular one is from a Grand South America and Antarctica from 2023. They always do a World Cruise one as well. Luggage tags, journals, bowls. Isn't this lovely? It has a Holland America Line logo right there. I somehow ended up with 2 of these. There's a whole pile of extra pillow gifts that you get along the cruise as well, and just a lot of little extras that they try to do to make the experience feel more special. Because it is special. This is a Grand Voyage. It's a world cruise. It's 133 days, and it deserves to feel special. They do a lot of extras that make the experience elevated over a traditional cruise. There are 10 different segment options for this world cruise, ranging from 14 days, there's a 14-day option, all the way up to a 72-day option. These range from the start of the voyage, which would be Fort Lauderdale. From Fort Lauderdale, you could do 37 days to San Antonio. You could also do 61 days to Sydney, Australia. If you wanted to start in San Antonio, you could do 41 days from San Antonio to Singapore. You could do Sydney to Tokyo, Sydney to Fort Lauderdale. That could be a fun one. Do the really long flight to start out with and then sail all the way back through. You could do Singapore to Fort Lauderdale, Singapore to Tokyo. That's a shorter one. Singapore to Tokyo is only 21 days. You could do Tokyo to San Diego, which is a 20-day, 34-day Tokyo to Fort Lauderdale, and then a 14-day San Diego to Fort Lauderdale. That's the one that's basically your standard Panama Canal cruise. Actually, if you want to do a Panama Canal cruise, that's the one to do. That would be the best Panama Canal cruise you could be on, because you are going to get all of the ending, finale, big events, big parties, big special dinners, oh my gosh, you'd get so many cool things in this happy little Panama Canal cruise that you're doing. That's going to be the best Panama Canal cruise of the year. What's included with the early booking bonus really depends on which cabin category you're in. Even the most basic level category, though, is going to include the Surf Wi-Fi package, an air credit of $500, transfers from the Fort Lauderdale airport, a 3% pay in full discount, as well as a $500 Grand Mariner discount. So that's if you've done a Grand Voyage with Holland America before. Now, where I think things start to get a bit more exciting, starting in Ocean View category C through F, is because it also includes your prepaid crew recognition. Now, this is an over $2,000 value, and so that's where I think that things start to kind of get a little bit where the value starts to really exist. Other inclusions that you'll see as you go through the different levels, like an in-suite liquor setup, complimentary shore excursion from the collections of Holland America Line, a variety of levels of luggage delivery services, 3, 4, 5 piece, depending on which cabin category you're in. Also, there's onboard credit per person, ranging from $500 per guest all the way up to $1,000 per guest. So there's quite a lot of different things that are included. The real big ones, the real big value other than the onboard credit, is the Wi-Fi and the prepaid crew gratuity. It really is worth it if this is something that you're looking at doing, to do your best to plan before June 16th that you're going to go, just to get these extra things. Right, now let's dive into this itinerary. This itinerary started out as something very different and has now turned into this kind of Circle Pacific, South America, Antarctica thing. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I will say, if you look, so Princess has 2 world cruises that sail each year. They have changed the itineraries on both of them. One of them, they opted to do a Circle Pacific thing as well. I don't like theirs nearly as much. It doesn't do any of South America. This world cruise, the Holland America one, for 2026 is the only world cruise sailing that year that goes to Antarctica. So I also really like that factor. The other world cruise that Princess has that they changed the itinerary for, they're still doing a circumnavigation, but it resulted in a lot of sea days, like an insane amount of sea days for the first part of the cruise, because instead of going up and around the Suez, because that particular one starts in New Zealand. So instead of going up through the Suez and doing that, they're crossing the Indian Ocean, and it's really just kind of like, okay, we're going from here, spending a whole bunch of time at sea, and then making our way up until we can connect with the Europe part that we were going to be doing anyways. And so for an itinerary shift to accommodate all the bad things in the world, I really like how they did this one. So you'll be starting in Fort Lauderdale on January 4th. You'll have stops in Barbados, Devil's Island, Cartagena, Belém in Brazil, a few other ports in Brazil. You'll have an overnight, your first overnight. There are 9 overnights on this itinerary. Your first one is Rio de Janeiro. You'll also stop in Montevideo and Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is not an overnight. That's a little unusual. It's not an overnight. You will head to Stanley Falkland Islands. So that's where you see a lot of penguins. And then you'll head to Antarctica for the Antarctic experience. After this, you'll have Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, and then you'll be scenic cruising through the Chilean fjords. A stop in Puerto Montt, followed by San Antonio. So that's a 37-day section right there, and that is the first of the segments that are available. At this point, you're going to start the Pacific crossing over to Easter Island. So when we were in Easter Island, this would have been maybe the 2019 World Cruise. The weather was bad. It's a tender port. We were only able to get like half the guests off the ship. That, of course, made a lot of people very disgruntled. Let's call it disgruntled. If the weather is bad and they can only get half of the passengers off, it's going to be the half that are on shore excursions booked through Holland America Line. That's just how it is. It makes business sense for the company. If Easter Island is a bucket list thing for you, please book a shore excursion to do it. If the weather's bad and they're able to get anyone off without just canceling the port, it's going to be the people that are on Holland America Line shore excursions. Next up, there's a little call for Pitcairn Island. This is not a stop where people go ashore. Natives from Pitcairn will come on board. They will sell their goods. They'll do a presentation on the world stage. They'll talk to you about the Bounty shipwreck, that whole thing. But it's not one where you go ashore. It is still pretty cool. Next up, you've got a couple stops in French Polynesia. There is an overnight in Papeete, which is Tahiti, so that's great. You also have Moorea and Raiatea. You have Nuku'alofa, and then you make your way down to New Zealand. You've only got 2 stops in New Zealand. Auckland, not an overnight, but you do have a stop in Auckland, and then Waitangi, which is in the Bay of Islands. Very, very pretty port. After this, you'll head across to Australia for an overnight in Sydney. Sydney is just a fabulous port. It's one of the prettiest places to sail in and out of in the world. The harbor is incredible. It's a very special experience to sail in and out of Sydney. And it's an overnight, which is great. You'll have a couple other stops as you make your way up the east coast of Australia, including Townsville and Cairns. Cairns is where you're going to, if you want to go snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, that's kind of like a big port for that. Then you'll be going to Darwin. Every time I've been in Darwin, it's been like 1,000,000 degrees. So please just be prepared. This whole stretch of things, it's going to be hot, hot, hot. You'll have a stop in Komodo Island To see the Komodo dragons, you do need a shore excursion to go ashore in Komodo. It's basically to keep everybody safe. You need to have a guide for what you're doing. It's not kind of just go ashore for a beach day type place. Bali is an overnight. That's always fun. Another fun thing that you will see, especially on this Indonesian stop, is a lot of the crew members on board are from Indonesia. And so they're going to be bringing their families on board for the day. And it's really special. I mean, there's sometimes that people are meeting their babies for the first time on these days because the baby was born while they were at sea. And it's a really special day for the couple days that the crew are able to bring their family on. This is followed by another overnight, this time in Singapore. And then this is where the itinerary really shifts from what it was going to be to what it became. So you're going to continue north. You're going to have a couple of stops in Vietnam, Nha Trang, Phu Mai, which is for Ho Chi Minh City, then Ha Long Bay, an overnight in Hong Kong. You're going to be stopping in Taipei, as well as, I think there was 9 Japanese ports, including overnights in Nagasaki and Tokyo. It ends up being this very destination-heavy section of the itinerary with some nice overnights scattered in between. It really gives you an opportunity to explore. I'm excited for this portion of the itinerary. I love sailing through Japan. When you can get a really intensive, so many ports in a row, it's wonderful. This is when you're going to cross and make your way back. This is the circling the Pacific part of things. You're going to head to Kodiak, Alaska. So Kodiak doesn't show up on that many Alaskan itineraries. If you're doing like a 2-week Alaskan itinerary, it'll show up there. That's when I was able to go there. We did 2-week itineraries for a whole summer, followed by Sitka, Ketchikan. So those are kind of more standard ports that you're going to see in Alaska. This is very early in the season though. This is April. So you're going to be getting to see the Alaska before all the cruise ships show up. So if you're used to being in Ketchikan when there's 5 other ships there, this is early enough in the season that that's not going to be the case. So it'll be kind of an interesting early side of the season way to see this place. Then you have a stop in Seattle, followed by San Diego, and then this is what starts the kind of very normal Panama Canal cruise. But if you were going to do a segment, you wanted to stay close to home, you wanted to get a feel of what extra activities and events can happen for a world cruise, this is the segment to do. It's a 14-day Panama Canal cruise in essence, this last little section is, but it's also the end, the culmination of 133 days of a big group of passengers all being on board together for the whole time. The crew that are there year after year after year doing these grand voyages. And so if you wanted to get a taste of a world cruise so that you could see kind of, are the events, are the extras, are all of those things worth it? Like, is it special enough for me to want to be on board for 4 months instead of 2 weeks? This is the one to try. If you want something close to home, if you want something a little further away, then maybe do one of the Tokyo or Singapore options. So San Diego, then you have a few stops in Mexico. You will do a Panama Canal crossing, which is a full transit, which is a long day. It's very interesting, but it is a long day. Followed by Cartagena and then up to Fort Lauderdale. And that's when everyone says bye-bye. And then the Volendam is making its way north to Canada, New England, which I kind of get excited about because I'm a Vermont girl. So it's always fun when there's ships that are not flights away. Instead, it's just a couple-hour drive. So let's do a very quick overview of the beautiful ship that you will be spending these 133 days on, the Volendam. Volendam is the smallest ship in Holland America Line's fleet. It holds 1,432 passengers. It is one of their R-class vessels. It is the sister ship to the Zondam. There are some differences between the two ships. Most notably, the Volendam has lanai-style cabins, which are cabins along the deck 3 promenade deck that have doors that open. It gives you the option to, go directly outside into fresh air like you would have with a veranda or a balcony cabin, except for, in this case, you're going onto the promenade deck, which is the deck people walk around on. It's also boat deck, so for drill days and things like that, there's things that are happening with the lifeboats and whatnot. So that's probably the most notable difference between the Zondam and the Volendam, other than, interior furnishings are all a little bit different. And I'm going to go with Volendam's better because that's the ship that I get to sail on quite a lot. There are 9 primary guest decks. There is technically, it'll say that there's 10. There is an observation deck, which is up above the crow's nest at the very front of the ship. It had previously just been accessible by stairs. They now have a motorized lift that goes up the stairs for anyone that has any mobility challenges. What else about this beauty? She has 5 main dining venues. Included, you're going to have the dining room, the Lido Marketplace, dive-in, and room service. And then for specialty restaurants, you're going to have Pinnacle and Canaletto. Canaletto is part of the Lido buffet. So at night, there's a part of it that you can tell during the day even. It's got different carpeting, it's got different tables, it's a different vibe to it. But in the evening, they section that part off and that becomes Canaletto. So then the other option is Pinnacle. That's down on deck 4. It is lovely. It's delicious. They have recently changed the menu. I think it's still really good. They didn't get rid of anything I particularly like. I do have a friend that really liked the mushroom soup that they used to have, so he was a little disappointed. But yeah, so Pinnacle's down on deck 4, and then they also do Morimoto by the Sea as a pop-up. So sometimes instead of being Pinnacle, they'll switch that over for the evening. All right, there's also 5 bars on board. There is the bar in the crow's nest. There are 2 bars on deck 8, which is the Sea View bar. That is at the very back of the ship by the aft pool. Now, there is a smoking area on one side of the aft pool. It is now on the port side. If you previously sailed on Volendam, it was on the starboard side forever. It is now on the port side, which is actually nice because then you can go order your drink at the bar being a little bit further, more separated from the smoking section. So I actually saw that as a positive shift. The other bar is by the midship pool. That's the pool that's covered by the dome. Both pools on board are heated and they're freshwater, which is nice. A lot of cruises will use saltwater, but these are actually freshwater pools that are heated. There is outdoor seating at the aft of the ship, both the smoking area and the non-smoking. There's usually some other tables set up as well. So if you want to get some outside dining experience, that's your best spot to go to. By the midship pool, there are also tables set up, but the dome isn't always open. So it's a little more fresh air than sitting inside, but it's still not fully fresh air usually. Before we head downstairs to the other bars, there's a couple more things up on decks 8 and 9 to chat about. First is on deck 9, there are 2 pickleball courts. There's also a shuffleboard set up. And then at the very aft, there is Club Hal, or the Kids Club. It is not operated regularly during Grand Voyages. Voyages longer than 25 days, Holland America Line is no longer having a designated Kids Club staff on board to run it the regular hours. There will be pop-up events that happen throughout the cruise if there are kids on board, but it's not something you should plan on. The other thing is on deck 8, all the way at the front of the ship is where the spa and fitness center is. So on deck 5, you have the ocean bar, which is where the band plays each night. And then you also have the mix bar, which is, they have some TV set up and sometimes they'll do live sports there as well. But then just next to that is where the piano bar is. And that's where the piano bar entertainer plays. That's also adjacent to the casino. So the casino drinks come from there. And then there's all sorts of shops in there as well. Also on deck 5, there is the Explorations Cafe. This is where you get your specialty coffees. There is a library on board. The library did get a makeover in the last dry dock. They upgraded the tables for board games. The Hudson Room is still there for the card players meetup, and they usually have a bridge instructor on these long voyages as well. So I would pretty much expect that to be there. Also on deck 5 is the Explorer's Lounge. The Explorer's Lounge, they'll do some small presentations in. They are doing on long voyages. I know there's a lot of talk in Holland America Line, Facebook groups and all that stuff about classical music. The long voyages, so like a world cruise, have a classical duo or trio on board. Now, of course, also on deck 5 is the dining room. The dining room has 2 floors. Deck 5 is where the fixed seating is. Deck 4 is anytime dining. All the way at the front of deck 5, you have the world stage. That is on 2 floors, decks 5 and 4. 4, you'll also find the front office, the photography studio, shore excursions office, the Wying Theater. So we do have movie presentations or movies. The other main thing on deck 4 is Pinnacle Grill. 3 is the promenade deck. It's also where the base of the atrium is. So the atrium is 3 floors going between 3, 4, and 5. It's forward, it's near the forward elevators, and it's got this kind of glass structure, and there's some nice spirally staircases. Deck 2 is just staterooms. Deck 1 is where the medical center is. That's all the way forward on the port side. You will end up on Deck A for gangway access all the way forward, and then also the tendering. You'll access the tender platforms from forward on Deck A. So there you have it, the 2026 Holland America Line World Cruise. I would definitely recommend this itinerary if it's, these regions or places that you've wanted to go. I think Holland America Line has a really lovely world cruise product. If you are looking for a circumnavigation, it isn't the one for you. Either wait another year or check out my blog post. There's a number of cruise lines that are still sailing full circumnavigations in 2026. I really hope to see you on board. I don't know if I'll be there or not, but I might be. And if I am, please say hi and happy cruising. Have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Okay, bye.